So welcome back to the next part of the video, which is reassembling. When we first put it up, I said I wanted to do it in the hour. You saw the time was 3:30, it's now 4:20. Taking half an hour to disassemble, but obviously talking through does take a wee bit longer too. So all the parts are still here. I haven't actually moved anything. I basically just paused the video and then started again. Probably other ways to do it, but I'm not a big video type of person. Making sure that I'm grounded, put the anti-static strip on the bare metal part here, which as per the case's instructions as to where to put the anti-static clip. I've also put it on the case itself through on the mat. I could also put it on the mat itself, or on that clip there too, but I think I've got enough protection there, to be honest. I've got an anti-static strip, I've got the mat, it's anti-static, I'm on carpet, I'm on lino, not on carpet, I'm not wearing anything woolen, I'm constantly grounding myself, I'm wearing using safe tools and using anti-static bags, so relatively safe there. So first steps first is we're going to put back on the CPU very carefully. As I said, I'm not going to worry about reapplying the thermal paste because I feel there is enough on there. You know what? Yeah. Might just put a little bit more on there, just on the tip of it. But I'm just going to get rid of a little bit more of this on the side. Normally, cool. So we're just going to gently place that in there. Cool. That was gentle enough. The arrow on this one is on the top right. So it's basically the exact same sequence as before. As I said, I'm just going to apply just a tiny bit more thermal paste, just because I don't think I put enough on there. Came out really quickly. Clean that up. Right, so this was a bit of a disaster mess here. That was a terrible way of doing that. Alright, there's one mistake. It's about recognising your mistakes and talking through. This particular thermal paste is one that came with the cooler. It's just one that I had on me and it probably wasn't the best one to use, but that's okay. What's on there is fine. I just wiped off a tiny bit of it, a little bit too much, but as I said, normally you would put on a pea size bit of thermal paste, and then the heatsink will spread that out itself. So on here, the first sequence of events is to clip this one down first. There's two clips on here, clip that one down, that holds the CPU in place. Down, like so. So one on there, one clip, and two clips. That holds the CPU in place. Just checking that it's not going to be a problem at all. I'm just going to open that up again, just to make sure I have put that in properly. Just because it was a little bit tricky. Oh, that's fine. Just being over pedantic because I want it to boot up first time to make it simpler for the video. Plus, I don't want my i7 processor to be damaged, especially in this particular motherboard, because this is an X99 motherboard. It's a relatively limited amount of CPUs will actually work with this particular motherboard, so it's actually going to work in a bit of a, if I replace the motherboard, I'm going to replace the CPU and vice versa as well. Cool, so CPU's installed. Next step is to put the RAM in. I believe that's the next step. As I said, I would normally put the heatsink on first, however, the heatsink is an all-in-one, so I'm going to put that on as I put it on the case. So RAM first. As we know the slots is going, and they only go one way, the way that it is slotted as well, which makes assembling and disassembling a PC a lot easier. It's basically adult size Lego. Adult Lego is what PC building is. Adult Lego. Because most of the parts will go in only one way, and they connect in there nicely and stay in there, just like Lego. Just careful when you're touching the RAM, not to touch the internal parts, the chips of it. It says it's got a heatsink on it, so it makes it a lot easier for that. And just also just make sure you are putting it in the right way as well, to make it easier there too. That's interesting. These ones go that way, and these ones go that way. Interesting. Okay, so that's right. So this particular motherboard, as I said, has 8 slots. Each set of 4 is opposite to each other. So these 4 are flipped over. I guess that's for aesthetic reasons, potentially. I don't know. Potentially. So next step is that we're going to now put it back onto the case itself. Just being careful to, as you're putting it on there, because you don't want to be scratching the back of the case, back of the motherboard on the case screw parts. Yeah, probably could have put the hard drive in first, but I'm not going to. And holding it very gently on the side and placing it onto those screw ports. Now we're going to screw the motherboard in first. Just make sure any cables are out of the way. Cool. Screw it in first, so that way when we're putting the cables in, we're not moving the motherboard around and scratching the back of it on that panel there as well. Makes it a lot easier. So screw that in. Time's looking good. Looks like I'm building this a lot faster than what I was disassembling it, which is good. Relatively simple. I really hope this boots first time. But if not, that's part of the fun, to figure out what you've done wrong, as long as you haven't stuffed it up permanently by doing something stupid, like not using the correct protective equipment, or scratching things, damaging the actual components itself. As long as you're careful, if a problem occurs, you're going to be able to fix it. May be a quick fix, may not be a quick fix, but that's part of the journey of IT, is to learn from things. And if you can't fix it yourself, well, that's why you do IT, to learn how to fix things. People will be coming to you for advice and things like that. Okay, let's just screw that on there. Again, this is a magnetic screwdriver, so it makes it actually a lot easier to hold the screws in. I'd really recommend that. But just holding it in place as well, just be careful. You don't want to have to use, you don't want to and also when you're screwing it in, don't over screw it. So just screw it until it's slightly tight and then leave it at that. Because if you're over screwing it, you may end up touching something you don't want to touch with the metal and damaging the motherboard itself. So again, just a safety measure there. Nice screw. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is put the SSD card in, and then we'll put that cooler in as well. Why is that screw not going? Cool. So SSD card, it's an M2. The screw is somewhere in my screw kit. So be careful not to lose screws. I had them in the screw case and I have a little case on top of it. There we go. So I did have a container, but I didn't use it for all the screws. So just being careful when you're taking this out to iron a touch on the sides. Close inside like so. Most older motherboards will not have this sort of capability. This particular motherboard is from 2016, so it's a relatively old motherboard, but it's top of the line in 2016. So yeah, it's one of the top ones, which is good because then it's still relevant today, 5 years later. So the thing about computers, they just, man, the components just, so just be careful there. See, I just dropped the screw there. But it's okay, I didn't scratch anything, so that's fine. This particular screw is the most tiniest screw I've ever seen, and it is stupid. Right, so this here, I'm going to get my screw again, magnetic poking thing. I easily got it. So again, there's always problems, but just don't rush things, and you shouldn't have a problem. If you're putting the screw in the wrong way, well, you should be able to put a screw on. This is crazy. This is it's a bit of a tricky screw, this one, because it's so small. But I think I see what the problem is. I just haven't quite put that SSD card in properly. So I'm just going to adjust it slightly, and then I will be able to put the screw in. Pretty much the only problem I've had so far. Oh my goodness. I wonder if anyone else has this sort of thing. Right. This is exactly why you need one of these things, because it just fell between the RAM. So what I recommend is reversing what I just did and actually putting the SSD card in first before putting it back in the case. because then this is sort of in the way, so it's making it a bit tricky, but that's okay. I'm also under pressure because I'm videoing myself. I don't know why I did it this way. Anyway, we have success. Cool. That's in. So, bit of problem with that. As I said, would have probably not done in this case, although this is a case designed for doing it that way. So it's relatively straightforward. Right, next step now is to install this all-in-one cooler. Just careful with the cables, careful with the bottom of it because it still has thermal paste on it. And what's going on here? This way. So I've run into a bit of a problem here because the sequence of how it should be is not how it should be. Ah, that's what. Look at that way. That nearly got my heart going. That's the thing with these all-in-one coolers is it's just a little bit tricky sometimes because you don't want to wreck this in here. Now you got to be careful here not to slide around too much because the thermal paste is still on there, so you got to be really careful there too. Is to not let the thermal paste slide over. So the sequence of putting this on again is opposites. Although I've just done it slightly different there because yeah, there we go. I'll tighten it up opposites just to make it easier that way. But you do need to be very careful here because obviously it's a CPU, it's a thermal paste. This is about cooling the CPU itself. So if you're spreading thermal paste around, you put too much on, basically you'll just ruin the point of having a cooler because it's not going to cool efficiently. So we're just going to tighten this up. Opposites, again, not too tight because then you get crazy, you're going to put too much pressure on the CPU itself. Really simple job. Yep. I hope this boots up nicely. If it doesn't, it's going to be pretty embarrassing. But, well, it's all about. It's what it's all about. Cool. Next stage is I'm just going to put this graphics card. There we go. Anyway. PCI Express adapter. I don't know what it's called. Into that one there. Cool. That clips into place, and then the graphics card will go into there. Before I put the graphics card on, I'm just going to plug it all up just because it makes it nice and easy. So first things first is just remembering what things went to where. Now there was a fan. Okay, so this is going under here. Okay, so there was a system fan plug. We're going to have to take the back panel off because the system fan has gone in there, although I do have some. No, it's not work. This one, I'll need to do that then. So I put this one on first, which is the CPU power. Put the motherboard power on. And pushing it all the way down until it clips into place as well. And put the SATA cables in the place. There's a sequence of where they need to go as well. I've just put them back onto where they were. The motherboard told me where I should be putting those, so that's in the correct slot. There is a USB, front panel USB. There's a notch there, so it only goes one way. So there's little pins here that stop you from putting it the wrong way, basically. USB 3.0. Front. Really important because it's where I'm putting my wireless keyboard and mouse, so it needs to work. And then this is the part where I feel good that I did it this way, because it's going to be nice and easy to put these back into place because I have just taped them up. Nice and simple. Like so. That was genius. There is a speaker somewhere. Speaker. Positive that way. So positive. Cool. Let's tuck that out there. It's not required, but I'll put it there anyway. Then we're just going to grab the GPU. It's embarrassing, the GPU. It still does the job, but oh well. Place it in here, like so. Push it back. Place it in place. Make sure you're not bending the pins or anything like that, not touching the card too much, and it should click into place like that. Got the screw in to hold it in. A lot of the modern GPUs are a lot larger. They require two of these to be taken out for them to fit into place. And you've also just got to think about where you're putting things as well. There's enough space for cooling as well. Beautiful thing about this case is that it's open air. So I'm going to run into problems down the track when it comes to dust and that sort of stuff. That's right, just take it out, dust it down, happy days. But that will be something I need to be mindful of, basically. Put the CPU fan in. This is very important. It's going to tell me whether I'm going to run the fan. It's going to tell me whether my fan's actually working and whether the CPU is actually cool as well. Cool. I got to do that right. No, that's alright, I'm just joking. Next stage is the PCU. And we put this way in the same way, so that's fine. Just going to screw this in. Excuse me. So change this over. This case is one I would highly recommend for this course. So easy to get to parts. Cooling's not a problem. You can see the parts that you need to. It's fantastic. In a minute I'll just take the back off and show you where I take the hard drive off, because I have accidentally put that cable in the back there. Is it time or not? Oh yeah. Keep going soon. Yep. And put these in. So as I said, this is a fully module module PCU. So normally you wouldn't need to do this. You would just plug it in and go. Probably should have had light on the whole time. The sun's gone. Can't do this too terribly wrong because they all fit into the same spots. But they're all marked anyway, so you can put it into the right place if need be. There, and that goes into there. It goes into there. It's pretty much it, really. Put the case on. I'll put it on first, and look at that, it didn't break, which is a thing of beauty, because it's basically the case. I don't know whether you can get replacement glass panels, which is I guess the downside of this case, I guess. And probably should have used a mic. Hopefully you guys could hear me through that whole thing. But I'll write up a memo as well, what I was talking about. Cool. 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 So I'm just going to flip this up as well and take it back because I need to flip through a cable that got stuck. I'll show you the back. Probably not the best cable management, but it does the trick. Nice and simple, slides off like so. Take that off. Just up there. As you can see, the back of it, the hard drives, I would normally just pull them off. These come off and then unscrew the back of it. It's a nice simple, as I said, not relevant to this particular one because I did take a hard drive off. Feed that through there. That's the system fan. That little sucker fell through. See, this case has slots for the air cooler and dust protection as well. Place it on like so. Slide it across. So if something's not fitting, it means there's something in the way. It means that something is where it should not be. And that is the same with everything when it comes to the PC. Although I did run into this problem previously, hence why I didn't really want to take it off. What is it that is holding back? Could be just this cable's not quite in. Cable there, push that back, and like so. There we go. Cool. So never force anything. If it's not going in, you've done it wrong. Screw. I'm still strapped in. Screw. 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 And now I unclip myself from here because I'm not touching any more components. Just give it one wee check over as well. Make sure you have pulled everything back the way it should be, which I believe it should be. And it's fairly heavy computer. Voila! Assemble. So next video we will plug this all back in and we'll boot it up, and hopefully there's no problems with it. I'm pretty confident with myself that it's going to have no problems. Fairly relatively easy as well. Cool.